Hello everyone and welcome to this week's episode of the Aftermath series. Let us waste no time at all and dive right into this week's episode of Critical Role. And now let me just start off by saying I think this might be one of my favorite episodes of the campaign so far. There was just so much that happened, so much that's just classic Dungeons and Dragons that it was just absolutely wonderful to watch. But there is a lot I want to get into, so let's just get right into it. The first major thing I want to talk about is the heist. Now, the heist really actually happened in the second half of the episode. The first half was just general role-playing stuff. They had a friendly throwing competition with everyone trying to see if they could handle this dispel grenade. Fjord ended up being the one to hold on to it, although he didn't quite succeed in the competition. But then as everyone left the tavern, Caleb decided to test if he was worthy of holding the grenade and just did a ginger little throw into the tankard, and although no one was there to witness it, he did succeed. But now back to the heist. Now, the Mighty Nine is typically good at coming up with plans. While they may be random at times, they do end up finding a relatively solid plan of action. And I would say that they succeeded in this heist. I mean, overall, it went really well. But the nice little thing about this heist is that the last time we had something like this was way back in episode 12 of this campaign. This feels like eons ago. It was more than a year ago at this point. And it's just interesting to, just take a second and think about how far the Mighty Nine have come in terms of power, relationships, getting to know each other, just knowing themselves even. They have all changed so incredibly much. And Caleb even mentioned that the last time they had done a heist like this, Fjord held a sword to Caleb's throat. And they sort of had a brief little conversation about that. Both of them sort of apologizing and realizing and doing a little bit of self-reflecting on, maybe both of them were in the wrong. And obviously they wouldn't do that again unless circumstances became dire and someone turned on the party. But the point I'm trying to make is that they've both grown since then, and we can definitely see the relationships have solidified. But with this heist, a very hilarious thought came from it. Back before the heist took place, Caleb had a conversation with Bo where Caleb said he has this roller coaster thought process with the group. There are some times where he thinks they're a bunch of fuck-ups and they are irredeemable, and then there's other times where he truly believes in them and thinks they can accomplish great things, like they did with the dragon. And what's absolutely hilarious is that after he has that sentiment, the heist happens, where things don't go as smoothly as they thought. Things started off okay, with most of the members of the party making it onto the roof with relative safety. However, they did pique the interest of one of the guards on the third floor, and Knot and Jester decided to take it upon themselves to silence this particular guard. And now at first I thought they were just going to maybe gag him or knock him unconscious, but Knot had other plans and decided to instant kill this guard. And now, yes, that's a bit of an overkill. They probably didn't have to do that, but what makes this worse is that Rainey is with them, and well, we all know her thoughts on evil. So an interesting element to this whole heist was the Mighty Nine was really just being themselves, wanting to steal various things, not wanting to kill. And every so often they just had to reassure Rainey that they were doing this to bad people so that the good people could live. So it was just funny seeing them have to defend their actions in the presence of Rainey. But this heist just encapsulated so many wonderful D&D things. We had Knot the rogue being super clutch with disarming the traps and unlocking various doors. We had Caleb and Clay just using their detect magic and traps to heat seek these various dangers within the house. We had some intrigue with Bo deciphering this letter and the initials IJ coming out, which we will touch on later. As the party went further into the house, they located various magical objects, and Matthew was definitely trying to tempt the Mighty Nine with all these various magical objects to try to entice them, try to get them to maybe trigger one of his traps. Unfortunately, the rolls were in the Mighty Nine's favor this episode, and they were able to acquire 2 of the 5 magical items within this chamber. However, when they tried to get the 3rd, the magical wand, Not was unable to unlock the case, and something triggered, which alarmed the guards outside the building to enter, which then caused the party to make a swift getaway. And while this heist definitely wasn't silent, they certainly left a trail of blood, and they took a little bit more than what they came for. So I think it's okay to assume that the owners of this establishment will know that they have been robbed. Of course, they would have known they would have been robbed anyways because the ring would have been gone, but now it seems a bit more personal since more things were taken and one of the guards were killed. So we'll have to see what comes of that. I don't think the Mighty Nine will be staying in Uthodurn much longer, so I think they'll probably be fine. Or will they? The initials IJ were seen in this letter, and the last name specifically stuck out as, I believe it's Jagantoths? I could be completely wrong with that pronunciation, but that name basically connects a lot of story threads. This goes way, way back to one of the jobs that the Mighty Nine took from the gentleman to go up to Shady Creek Run and help one of the more prominent families out there with an issue they've been having with one of the other families, the Jagantoths. And who did the Jagantoths hire? The Iron Shepherds. So there's all these various connections. We just didn't know who was more or less orchestrating this entire operation. But now we have a name, and now the party has a means to seek their vengeance. They now know who is truly responsible for the death of Molly. Yes, it was at the hand of Lorenzo, but who was Lorenzo working under? And now the Mighty Nine has that answer. So that was just a crazy moment in itself, because so little information was given to us. It was just a name. But then the realization of all of the connections that this name has was just mind-blowing. So what the party does with this, we'll have to see, but I can only assume that vengeance is on the table for the party. But now moving on, the party does have the Ice Flex, and they took it to Umagorn, and then they all traveled as a unit back to the kiln to reforge this blade, where we had a few touching moments. Rainey is now leaving the party. Sadly, Mika Burton did an absolutely wonderful job playing Rainey, and we are all going to miss her dearly. And of course, Bo, being Bo, helped out a nervous Rainey as Rainey presented her with a rose and just decided to kiss her right then and there, which, to the delight of Rainey, definitely surprised her, but she was more than satisfied with that outcome. And then they decided to just take a little walk on the countryside. And one last thing I want to touch on before we get into the big stuff. Caleb and Nott had a minor conversation. Caleb was just talking about Nott's drinking problem. And Nott just went into her idea of wanting to be there for the party, wanting to protect them, because that's what she needs to do. And she knows that what she wants done is going to take a lot longer than what other members in the party want to accomplish. She mentioned that she doesn't drink for fun. She doesn't do it because it's a fun time. She does it because it helps her get the confidence to protect the party. Drinking is her shield. Alcohol is her shield. It's what protects her. And she thinks that she needs it in order to protect the rest of the party. And while she did say she was going to try to get better, she doesn't want to disappoint Caleb. It's probably not a habit she's going to kick easily. She needs it as much as the rest of the party needs Nott. So we'll have to see where it goes, but at least it's something that Nott is going to think about at the very least. And now we are going to get into the absolutely insane moment of this episode, at least in my opinion, and that is Fjord's dream with the Wild Mother and what happened afterwards. So we had this little bit of a dream sequence with Fjord where he had this vision of the Wild Mother where she offered her support in exchange for Fjord protecting her domain and those that follow her. Ford obviously agreed and was sucked under the water by a bunch of seaweed and kelp. And in the morning, after this blade was reforged, the Mighty Nine went looking for Ford because he was nowhere to be seen. But they did find a rather conspicuous pile of seaweed, which they eventually uncovered, and Ford was there. They pulled him out, and he was stronger. He had a more built physique. And upon waking up, he had many questions as well as the party. But one way to answer some of them was Bo's idea of having Ford change into the shape of Knot. He attempted to do it, and lo and behold, he was able to change into Knot. And this moment was just absolutely wonderful to see because there were so many questions about what was going to happen. Was he going to be able to keep his warlock powers? Was he going to become a paladin? Which, afterwards, after the episode concluded, Matt told the party that they had leveled up, and Ford is taking a level in Paladin. So this tells us that he is multi-classing. This also tells us that he is keeping his levels in Warlock. He is just also becoming a Paladin. But my favorite moment in all of that chaos and absolute joy was Ford casting Eldritch Blast and going back into his Texan accent just for Knot and seeing that Wild Mother energy emanates from his hand and then casting Eldritch Blast. So needless to say, Ford is back, and it seems that Matt allowed Ford to gain a few points in strength just so he could multi-class into Paladin. Now, I don't know if him being stronger will have any real changes, but maybe Knot will look at him differently, and I'm sure Jester is perfectly content with this change as well. Although she was perfectly fine with the way he looked before, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with him beforehand, but maybe now Knot will look at him a bit differently. And maybe even Ford will think of himself differently, as he did not quite like his appearance before. He was a bit on the weaker side as far as half-orcs go, so maybe now he'll have a little bit of a boost in confidence now that this change has taken hold of him. Oh man, but with all of that being said, we are going to wrap up this episode. So much happened. We got so much new information. There are so many options in front of the Mighty Nine. They now reforged this ancient sword, and who knows what it does. Matt handed Travis a massive paper for the description of this sword and what it does. So we'll have to wait and see until 2 weeks from now what it does, because they are taking a week off next week. But I definitely want to know all of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions for that episode. There was a lot to unpack. I'm sure I missed some things. I'm sure I mispronounced that family name. Maybe have even gotten it entirely wrong. But what do you all think about this newfound connection with all of these different story threads? How excited are you that Ford is back? His powers are back, and he is also multi-classing into Paladin. Again, I am going to miss Mika Burton and Rainey absolutely dearly. Hopefully we'll see her again sometime in the future, but who knows what paths await the Mighty Nine moving forward. And as always, I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful rest of your weekend, and I will see you all in 2 weeks.